Hey guys, Pie Guy Rules here, and welcome to the second part of this two-parter of the worst episode of Adventure Time as voted by you guys. This part is Jake the Dog, and we will be picking up where we left off. Before we begin the review proper, I've got a few things to talk about here. One, a lot of you seem surprised in the comments that was the episode that was voted the worst episode. Well, remember, this part of the episode I'm considering to be the full episode. Jake the Dog is definitely a part 2 of the episode. So, Finn the Human may not be that horrible, but Jake the Dog, it gets a little bit worse, and while I agree, it's definitely not the worst episode of the series, and there are still some good things that you can find about this particular episode, it's the way you guys voted. In the future, I will be doing an actual official poll on a website to make things very clear-cut about what you guys vote for, because I want to make sure there's no double voting or anything weird like that going on. So, now that that's all taken care of, so let's go back into that wormhole to the alternate universe where I'm talking about Jake the Dog. So we pick up right where the last episode left off, as Finn's eyes are glowing with power from just putting on the crown. He coughs up some ice, and suddenly we hear his inner monologue as how he talks about how the crown is starting to control his mind, and how it's taking over, and how he feels the need to use these ice powers. And then he starts shooting all of these ice lightning bolts everywhere and puts out the fire. But he can't stop, he keeps going. And I actually want to say that if you think about this a little bit deeper into it, you realize that Finn here is actually fairly weak when it comes to the crown's influence, and it's making him very violent and uncontrollable. Now, think back to the Ice King from the regular Adventure Time universe. He's a goofball and stupid, and occasionally he uses his powers for violence, but for the most part he's harmless, and he doesn't really harm any of the princesses that he takes, and he barely harms Finn and Jake. It must take a lot of self-control for him to not be violent like that, and I think that that's because Simon was a very smart man, and I think that his way of coping with all this power is to basically become an airhead, and if he were to focus too much on all the power that he has, he would be too strong and the crown would corrupt him so much. Or you could interpret it as because the crown's last owner was killed, Simon in this universe, the crown has now become incredibly violent. But again, I may be reading into things that aren't really here. So anyway, Finn, all crazy with power, keeps throwing down these giant ice lightning bolts. Marceline rushes over to where the nuclear bomb is and notices that one more hit and it'll blow. Finn hits one more time, and the thing goes off. And let me tell you, again, I can't express enough that this episode's animation is beautiful. This episode and Finn the Human, I'll be calling it this episode, just know that I'm referring to both parts, have absolutely amazing animation. I touched on it in the last part, but it's really shown here. When the bomb goes off, you see clouds of skulls. It's green clouds of skulls. How cool is that? That is the coolest way to portray a nuclear bomb. It's like these literal green toxic skulls that are erupting like smoke. It is really cool. So, the bomb went off, and Finn decides to protect Barbar, not Jake, which I found to be a little bit odd, with an ice shield. Then, it cuts back to Jake in Prismo's room. So, yeah, apparently no time has passed for Jake, and he asks where Finn went. Prismo turns on the TV and says that he's in his own wish-altered reality now that he made the wish. Although, it's a little bit strange, the fact that now they're up to, like, the current point of the episode that we're up to when he shows on the TV, even though technically Finn just left, so really it should have started from the beginning, but I guess since it's an alternate universe, Finn's technically been there all his life, so it's just a coincidence that Jake sees this particular part of the story in that alternate universe. But I'm going to get off the subject of minor nitpicks because some more troubling issues with the episode are coming up. But yeah, there's this giant TV screen that's the wall now, and you can see Finn in this nuclear wasteland that has become a farm world. But Prismo mutes it because he's talking to Jake. So you see all of this, this nuclear cloud in the background, and Prismo and Jake are kind of goofing around a little bit. Prismo's like, you get a wish too, Jake, and Jake's like, no way! And Prismo's like, yeah, man. So what does Jake wish for? A sandwich. Yeah. I'll give it points for being a callback to the episode The Limit, where at getting to the end of the maze, he wishes for a sandwich and gets it. However, in that episode, he was really exacerbated from being stretched thin. In this episode, he has no excuse for making such a stupid wish. Look, I get that Jake is lazy. I get that Jake is not as clever as Finn, But for the love of God, this is a very serious, important two-parter, and your friend is in a nuclear wasteland behind you. You're gonna wish for a sandwich? By the way, since Finn's in his own alternate universe, how are you ever going to get back to him, Jake? Have you thought about this at all? Well, alright, apparently Jake's not thinking here, but fortunately Prismo is. Prismo's like, nah, don't waste your wish on that. I'll just make you a sandwich. And Prismo makes him a sandwich. Yeah, Prismo is awesome in this episode. He is the coolest character and definitely one of the most original characters that I've seen, even from this show, even if his scenes are part of the problem. Also, is it just me, or does he remind you of the manta ray things from Super Mario Sunshine? I guess I was stuck on that level for most of my childhood. It just burned into my brain. Anyway, back to the review. So, yeah, you know how I mentioned that Jake's being a little bit stupid here? Well, Prismo even hints that he should save his wish for someone important, and Jake just doesn't get it. Maybe he just doesn't care about Finn. I don't know. I get that he wasn't trying to be callous here, and they weren't trying to make him callous, just more of a goof-off character. But in a very serious episode like this one, it just comes off a little bit out of place. Jake's been smarter than this. Oh, and there's a funny moment where Jake thinks that Finn's donkey is actually Jake. So Jake and Prismo go back to watching the screen, and we see the alternate universe again, where Finn rescues his family from ice. He realizes that he's too crazy to be around, so he sends them all off on his donkey. Then we cut back to Jake and Prismo, and Prismo's like, aren't you worried about your friend? And he's like, I got confidence in Finn. Alright, well, at least there's a little bit of explanation why he's being so laid back. It's nice to see that he has confidence in Finn. At least that's his excuse. Finn goes and tries to free the villainous gang from the ice, while muttering things like the voices tell him that he should freeze the world, and that he is the new birth, and, all this crazy jibber-jabber, and the gang runs away from him because he is crazy. And then Finn suddenly remembers about Jake. Finn runs to go get Jake, and then we cut back to Prismo and Jake in a hot tub, small talking about relationships. Yeah, this is the thing that a lot of people didn't like about the episode. And it's not even that people didn't like Prismo. It's not even that people didn't like Jake and Prismo's friendship and their little small talk. I enjoyed it. A lot of people enjoyed it. However, it was not in the right place of this episode. This episode should have been about action and adventure and an alternate universe where crazy things can happen. But instead, the second part of it, this Jake the dog, is mostly intercut with Jake and Prismo small talking. It's definitely not the right place for it. It's weird to see that Jake really doesn't have that much interest in what's going on with Finn. And to be honest, it's just out of nowhere, and it provides an anticlimax for the episode. And the thing is, Finn descending into madness is still going on in the background of the scene, just on mute. Well, anyway, then the Cosmic Owl, of all people, shows up and chills with Prismo and Jake in the hot tub. We finally cut back to Finn, who has found Jake submerged in this green toxic-looking pool. He pulls him out and finds Marceline's talking skeleton, and unfortunately, Jake isn't looking so good. By the way, a nice little detail is the fact that when he finds Jake, his eyes are the normal black color, implying that he's not under the influence of the crown at the moment. But then when he goes back into his crazy ramblings about ice, his eyes turn blue again. Then we cut back to Jake beatboxing with Prismo in the jacuzzi, when the Cosmic Owl accidentally, or maybe purposefully considering he is the Cosmic Owl, unmutes the television, where Finn is crawling away from Farm World Jake, who slowly morphs back into the Lich. Yeah, Jake became the new Lich. Now, isn't that awesome? That is a cool idea for a villain. Jake from an alternate universe who got turned into the Lich. And I thought about this for a second. I thought, well, Finn's wish was that the Lich didn't exist. And yeah, his wish did make it so that the Lich didn't exist, up until his meddling in the alternate universe. So it was an alternate universe where the Lich didn't exist, but then when he got there after he made his wish, the Lich existed afterwards. Little bit weird, but I guess that still kind of makes sense in a way. The Lich Jake comes really close to Finn, and Finn flies with his ice powers ready, and they engage in an epic battle, which lasts for all of 5 minutes. Nah, just kidding. It's just about to happen when the TV cuts out. Why does the TV cut out? I don't know. Yeah, it's not like there's an actual camera there. What reason would it have to cut out unless it was either Prismo or the Cosmic Owl trying to urge Jake to actually do something? Well, Jake sees all this and actually starts freaking out. He throws up in the hot tub and Prismo urges him to make his wish to fix this. But yeah, since Jake is an idiot, Prismo has to explain to him all the ins and outs of wishing and how you have to be very specific with it. And basically, Prismo makes the wish for Jake. He goads him on into making the right specific wish. He wishes that the Lich's wish was that Finn and Jake returned home. So, yeah, they suddenly time travel back to where the Lich is making his wish, and instead of making his wish to destroy all life, he makes his wish that Finn and Jake went home. And then Finn and Jake go home, and they're greeted by Princess Bubblegum. Finn's freaking out because to him, nothing actually happened. Jake remembers what happens, though, and he sees a jar of pickles with a note that says, "If you ever want to hang out, call me. P," even though it doesn't give, like, a phone number or any way of reaching him. Maybe the pickle jar's away. And Jake ends by saying he needs to get Prismo a girlfriend. There's a lot of things wrong with this episode. Mainly the fact that it's an anticlimax. It's a wish that pretty much undoes the wish. Even though Prismo makes him be clever about it, it's still just wishing for the end of the episode. A lot of you guys did not like their constant switching between comedy of Prismo and Jake's talking and the tragedy of Finn in Farm World. And I have to agree, although Adventure Time can pull off comedy and tragedy in the same episode fairly well, it did not do a good job this time. And like I said, I loved Prismo, everyone loved Prismo. You know, Prismo and Jake's conversations weren't bad per se, but they did not belong in this episode. That Prismo stuff should have been saved for a completely different episode. It really shouldn't have been the conclusion to the whole Lich saga, or at least the Lich saga for now. When you think about it, not much actual fighting even happened in the episode. There was a tiny little sword fight between Finn and the lead gang member in Finn the Human, but other than that, there's like nothing else. It starts to set up an epic fight between the Lich turned Jake and Finn with his ice powers. That would have been cool because it's the main characters from the show having powers from two of the villains, although I guess technically the Ice King is more of an anti-hero, and fighting each other. That would have been something cool to see, but nope. Instead, it's Jake and Prismo in the hot tub beatboxing. So, yeah, while this episode in and of itself isn't particularly bad, again, the Prismo stuff was kind of entertaining. When you consider that this is one of the few times that Adventure Time went really epic with the story, it just didn't follow up with it. There was no fighting, there was out-of-place scenes, and Jake wasn't even really a part of the main story. Technically, none of it ever really happened except to Prismo and Jake. It was a pretty bad, quote-unquote, epic story, and it really did ruin what could have been a really cool alternate universe story. However, because it does have a few good points, like some decent comedic moments, some really keep you on the edge of your seat moments, and introducing the awesome character that is Prismo, I will have to say it is definitely not the worst episode of the show, even though it probably is the biggest letdown. I really hope they end up using Prismo again. The fact that they included that little note at the end implies that they will. Prismo in a casual episode would have been hilarious. And heck, if they were to somehow bring back alternate universe Finn and alternate universe Jake, where Finn has the ice powers and Jake has the lich powers, that would be a really cool story. Heck, now that we know the Enchiridion goes to different universes, wouldn't it be cool if there was a story in which Fiona and Cake's universe mixed with the land of Ooo, mixed with the land of Farm World, to make this weird crossover epic adventure thing? That would be really cool, right? But that's all I really have to say about the episode. I hope you enjoyed this little rant review thing, and if you were disappointed, well, I'll tell you what. How about I review the 2 episodes with Tree Trunks in them that you all voted for? Dream of Love and Apple Thief. Alright? You guys happy? Join me next time when I review one or both of those episodes. Pie Guy Rules, out. Hey guys, don't forget to subscribe if you liked me, like this video if you, well, like this video, and comment if you have an opinion on anything that I just said. Oh, and I also have a Twitter. Follow me at Pie Guy Rules. I usually respond to any comments or questions that I get. Pie Guy Rules, out.